Hafaday, welcome to My Story. As the host of the show, it is my honor to present you with two wonderful people who are not just my friends, but are also very talented and a part of my musical family community. They share their talents with others to bring joy. Now, they share their stories to bring awareness to everyone that cancer does not discriminate and that it is important to get screened for early detection. Stay tuned as they share their story on My Story. Hafaday, and welcome to this edition of My Story. And today I'm very honored to have a very special guest and somebody who I hold dear and near to my heart, especially in the music arena. I'd like to introduce Mr. Pat Palomo. How are you, Pat?
Hafaday.
Hafaday, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be talking to you because I hear that you're quite the shy individual and that you don't often do like on-camera appearances. But I really want to thank you so much for doing this today. Now, the reason why I really wanted to bring you in is not because we want to expose your journey that you've had with cancer, but I really wanted to acknowledge the fact that there were so many people that came out to support you when they found out that you had cancer. That was quite a shock. Can maybe tell us a little bit about, first of all, what led you to go get checked in regards to cancer? Was there some symptoms that you were noticing, or do you remember?
I really didn't have any symptoms, but just knowing my age, and one of my very, very close doctor friends was telling me that it's about time I just get a screening done and go see a urologist and just find out because of my age. And then they kind of detected something and they asked me if I could get a biopsy. This was in 2017.
Wow.
And so after the biopsy, they said that I would be a perfect candidate from what they found because it was at a very early stage. It was just a very small growth in my prostate, and that if I would go and make myself a candidate for this assisted robotic surgery, it could be taken care of right then and there.
This was back in 2017?
2017, yes.
Okay.
And so what happened is then a series of events started taking place and I kept postponing going. I even was already going to go at one time, but then my mom caught ill. And I just decided that maybe if I just really take care of myself, exercise, follow all the healthy diets that they're recommending, maybe I could just go ahead and deal with this and hopefully, it would
It'll
physically just go away, something
right?
like I've heard other people say. But then over the time, it just little by little, my PSA level is what they give me during blood tests, kept rising, and then
is that how they detect prostate cancer?
Yes,
through
that's
the
one of the
levels
ways.
in your PSA?
Yes,
okay.
they take the blood test, and so I just didn't. It was hard for me to go because my mom had caught ill, and I just didn't want to leave her.
Okay.
And at the same time, I was just hoping to just take care of myself. So I put a lot of effort into working out, which is normally what I do anyway. I like to exercise and I do it to clear my mind to play music and also, but then I figure I'm just doing it for my health too. But even with that, there was still something that had to be done. And so
it didn't bother you on a day-to-day basis as you were carrying on everything that there was. I mean, did they say that it was cancer already back then?
No, they
when
didn't.
The PSA,
Yes.
when your PSA levels were going up, so they never told you cancer.
No, they
then?
told me that if I wanted to avoid getting into that stage of cancer that may spread,
Okay.
it would be prudent for me to do something about it then.
Okay.
But it was just my decision to postpone it and hopefully see if things might get better on a different way. But apparently it just kept building. And then at the beginning of 2000, you know, this year itself, the
2021.
2021, yes, my primary doctor, who's Dr. Wadi, said, you have to start making plans because of the high reading on my PSA. And then, but you know, it was weird.
But did he still never say it was cancer?
No, and I never felt anything. Nothing in my body was telling me I had anything wrong because I was always taking care of myself, exercising, even
so you felt great.
I felt great, yes.
Wow. Okay, interesting. So even at that point when earlier this year, and he said, okay, it's time. What you need to do something now. He still never said.
No, he
Pat,
said,
you have...
no, he still didn't really tell me that
wow.
this was cancer, but you know, he was just trying to encourage me to go and do something about it. But at that point, it was obviously already something that was there.
Okay.
It was a pretty high reading, and then
did you already have in your mind? Did
yes.
you have in your mind that that you have cancer?
I already had in my mind that there's something happening and that I better just do something about it, you know.
Okay. What was your, I mean, were you afraid? What was your feeling?
I just didn't want to leave my mom, who's adapted to her stroke condition that she had. Mm-hmm. At that time in 2017, she was really never given a chance to live. It happened when she was 89. We just celebrated her 94th birthday. And, you know, being that strong Chamorro woman, she waited for me, you know, so I kind of like, you know, sometimes I feel weird saying this, but I integrated everything that had to do with my healing along with hers. And I dare to say also teaching, which I started doing right before the pandemic. So all these different signs, I started to think of it in a very deep and spiritual way. Mm-hmm. And from that time, I just felt that the hand of God was guiding me, and that there's so much healing thoughts and support that came from friends and people who I've known over the years. And so I absorbed all of that, and I used that to carry me along.
When you finally made the announcement that you were going to go and get this treatment done, I mean, you didn't come out and just tell everybody. You said, you know, you still try to keep it within your immediate circle. So how did, you were getting ready to leave, how did, you know, Kaz, who, by the way, is an amazing supporter of yours. Yes. How did you tell him and say, Kaz, I need to go off island, I'm going to go, and this, so what, was it his idea?
He is a very trusted friend.
Okay.
And I've known Kaz for many years, even if, you know, I'm way older than him. Mm. But he's someone that, because of his genius, I would say, because I've watched this guy, and ever since he had that gig at House of Brutus set up, and I was playing there for about 10 years on Friday nights. I always, you know, I got to be better friends with Kaz, and I saw this guy who had a lot of, you know, like vision, insight, anything that had to do with marketing, anything that had to do with knowing how to appeal to people and put things together. Right. It was very genuine. And I knew that if I asked him if he could help me put something, maybe just to say to my friends, because when some of the other younger musicians found out that I was going through this, they were all getting nervous and trying to start out all this fundraising stuff. And I go, you know, let me talk to a good friend, and he can put everything together and make the recommendations. And so I owe the world to that guy.
You were probably
honestly
thinking, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and be able to financially support myself just a little bit. Then all of a sudden, that GoFundMe page went practically viral all over the world. People from everywhere in the world were contributing because they loved Pat that much. How did that make you feel?
Well, you know, that made me even feel more humble, and you know, it was very difficult for me to even ask for anything. In fact, Kaz wrote the script for that video that he put together, and I asked him if I could add something on that part that said, you know, I may need financial help, and ask him, can I just please ask for prayers first?
Yeah, right.
And so everything just worked out beautifully. But what I did is I trusted in Kaz's vision of how to put this together and how to appeal and reach out to people in such a way that it would be the way I would want to ask people. Right. He knew exactly how to put it together.
It had such a phenomenal reach. You exceeded your goal maybe 3-4 times over. And people were just, the outpouring of love and messages that I was able to read. People just love you so much. And I think it's because, I know it's because you've touched their lives in so many different ways through music. And I think you've healed them too, and me, myself too. When I saw that, I'm like, okay, I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, I've got to help him out because you were always there for us emotionally. Now, you're still playing, right?
Yes, I have to, because this is one of my ways to show my thanks and to show people that with all that healing energy and belief and prayers, there's a way that you can go about it and do it. I followed all the medical advice. I kept exercising and staying in good physical shape because I think that's important, because I want to be able to share it with people. Hey, you don't have to wait as long as I did. Once you detect something or you get advice from your doctor, go get a screening, and
You've
and
been
help
playing
yourself.
for how long? How many years?
Gosh, I could say I've been playing for a good 50 plus years if I go way back when I was playing with your dad.
Wow, that is
in the
amazing.
downbeats.
Oh my
long time
gosh.
ago.
So that's the reason why, I love you so much. It's because you have such a history that I probably, I wish I would have been a part of, to see my dad in that heyday of his, back then. So I love you so much. Thank you for being a part of his musical career.
I was enamored by him.
Really?
Part of the reason why I'm the musician I am today, and it's really all about singing. That's what I tell my students at Mount Carmel School where I teach. Regardless of what instrument you play, or whether you sing or play bass or percussion, it's ultimately about singing. And I noticed that in your dad. I loved his voice. I used to bother him about, why don't you sing more?
He was a humble man. So,
Yes.
so right now you're teaching, and then you're back to teaching. You are, of course, COVID is affecting the ability to play as often. But so where are you in your treatment? Are you almost done? Are you done?
I just finished. I'll be finishing my radiation part of my follow-up treatments tomorrow.
Okay, and then what happens after that?
Well, I still have to continue with this hormone therapy treatments.
Okay.
But everything seems to be going pretty well.
Okay.
And I have to say that I'm learning a lot about this. I didn't even know that so many of our people. I knew that there's a lot of people stricken with cancer here in Guam, but I didn't know that it was that much. And so.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I'm going through what I'm going through, hopefully to be an inspiration to others that may want to know about how they're doing, but go get your screenings because it's so important.
That's the most important message, is get your screening and don't put it off.
Yeah, and live your, Kaz was telling me, is that you never know what's going to be there tomorrow, so just try and enjoy every moment of it, whether it's cancer or what, do everything you can to take care of yourself and, to embrace all the love and the healing,
Well, I want to thank you, Pat, for sitting down with us and talking with us. I wish I had, hours and hours to spend with you. I know, but I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and hopefully it'll bring some light to people who have the same cancer with you, or any cancer for that matter. And your message is, just be healthy, be happy, and don't take anything for granted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Louise. God bless you for what you're doing, too.
Everyone loves Pat so much, so I want to thank Pat again. And this is My Story. Coming up after the break, we'll have more stories here on My Story. Hafa Adai, and welcome back to this episode of My Story. I'd like to welcome, and I'm very honored to actually have a very good friend of mine and a longtime sister and a former colleague of mine, Senator Tello Taitagui. She's here to talk about her story. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much. I have to tell you, I so miss you at the legislature.
You and I had a special bond that no one else really understood, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a musical connection to each other. First of all, what made you, were there any signs that you discovered or you had that led you to I guess, go to the doctor and get some testing done? Is that how did you get diagnosed with cancer?
Well, it first started, I guess, every year I go and get a physical. usually go to the Philippines to get my executive checkup. And I think I've been doing this since 2003. And so I made it a point to get my physical. Many people are too afraid to even get physicals because they might find something. And then one year in 2017, or 2016, I went to do a physical, and they actually found something wrong with my heart. The EKG was kind of off. So it was then that I had to return back to do some other tests, and they found out that I had this irregular pulse, or I had an issue called vasovagal. And what would happen is they would take my blood pressure sitting down, it would be normal. And then as soon as I stand up, then the blood pressure would just drop.
Drop?
It would just drop. So at that point, they did all the tests, and they found out that I just needed to change my lifestyle. I needed sleep. I needed to stay away from caffeine. I was dehydrated, and the caffeine was the one that was dehydrating. I was drinking like 6 bottles of green tea, daily, and just stress, a lot of stress. So I corrected that by just, changing my lifestyle, and that was a good thing. But right before I left the heart specialist, he said, "Why don't we do one more test?" And because it's connected to the heart. And I said, "Okay." He says, "Let's do an ultrasound of your thyroid." And I said, "Well, Doc, I'm leaving for Guam tonight." And he goes, "You could do it in Guam, not a problem." So when I got back to Guam, of course, I was going through so much things, I totally forgot. And then next thing you know, it was January at that time when I left the Philippines. It was already May. And I had to go visit my heart specialist again to see how I was doing. And it wasn't until I was landing into the Philippines that I remembered, oh my gosh, I forgot to do the ultrasound of my thyroid that he wanted. So I quickly went to St. Luke's and asked them, I need to do an ultrasound. I'm seeing my heart specialist and I forgot to do it, So sure enough, we did it that day. I saw my heart specialist the next day, and he said, "You're doing great, Tello. You're looking good. You lost weight. How are you feeling?" I said, "I feel great. Everything is good." He says, "Well, that's good. But I'm concerned about your results on your thyroid. We found something." Which you just had. We had found something. And I think we need to send you to an endocrinologist and also have it looked at because it doesn't look good.
Did you understand what that meant?
At first, I didn't. But when he said the word spot, there was a spot. You hear, you watch enough movies, that when they say a spot, you get a little concerned, more than a little concerned. You're already thinking cancer,
Right.
So it was at that point where I met with an endocrinologist just that day, and she wanted to already put me under the knife and take it out right away. And I said, hold on, let me...
But to you, did that mean that you already had cancer?
At that point, I don't know. She wasn't very clear, and I was just really in a fog. When you get that kind of news, you're just really in a fog.
Right.
So I ended up going back to Guam and seeing somebody on Guam to do the ultrasound as well, to get a second opinion. And it was then that I was advised to have a biopsy done. So that biopsy was taken, and about 3 weeks later came back, and it was positive for cancer. So it was that time.
Do you remember when they told you?
Yes, I
when they
do. In
sat you
fact,
down?
we talked about my dad, right? And it was in the doctor's office, and my endocrinologist, and my dad was sitting with me, and then that's when she told me, you have cancer. And it's thyroid carcinoma. And right when she said cancer, I didn't even hear the thyroid cancer, carcinoma and everything that was said in my head. So it really kicks you, and just all of a sudden you're not in that room. You're really not in that room anymore. You're just somewhere off, all by yourself. And
Did you look at your dad? I mean, did the two of you look at each other and like?
I didn't even look at my dad. Wow. Yeah, it was just, okay. I mean, I knew at that point, okay, we will schedule an appointment, and I just said, come on, Dad, let's go, you know. And my dad was very quiet at the time, but, and I was thinking about all this time, you know, I've gone every year since 2003. Now this is now 2016, or the beginning of 2017. Every year getting my executive checkup, you know, to avoid something like this. And the one thing in my executive checkup, I mean, they do everything. They check everything. They even do ultrasounds of your female organs and everything else. But they never do an ultrasound of your thyroid. All those years, I never even thought about it, because your blood work that's given has information there on your thyroid, but it doesn't show if it's literally a growth or anything on your thyroid.
Was it diagnosed with a certain stage? Because, you know, stages usually depend on, go ahead. The stages usually depend on how progressive the cancer is, right? So did they even say that there was a stage to your cancer, or?
Not at that point.
They just said, let's take it out now.
Yeah, well, after the biopsy was done, they already knew it was cancerous. And so it's just the process of you know, you're going through the motions at that time. You're banking on someone to tell you what to do, you know, and just trying to be very studious and meet every goal there is.
Were you scared? I mean,
absolutely.
Were you sad? Did you feel like you let your dad down? I mean, you know, I don't
think
those vulnerable emotions. Right?
I was just mad at myself for all these years of going to get my executive checkup,
and not
that
ever
I
discovered.
didn't even think, you know, to have them do an ultrasound of my thyroid. And you know, that's why I'm here today, really, Louise. It's very difficult to talk about cancer with anybody, actually, except a person who had cancer.
Right.
It's easy for me to talk to someone who's had cancer. I mean, many cancer patients will tell you that. They find it that they're in the same frame of mind as yourself.
Right.
So it's easy to talk about it and to go back and step, you know, your process of this journey. But I'm here today to talk about, to tell people to get your thyroid tested by an ultrasound, not rely on blood work, but thyroid is the 8th leading cause of death in the States. In cancer, number 8. And Guam seems to be very high with thyroid cancers.
Yes.
Very high. In fact, there was a bill, a resolution that we put forward from the PARS group, talked about certain cancers on the island that are high due to the fallout, you know, the Downwinder initiative. And thyroid is on there. So a lot more people on Guam have it, but you can't rely on blood work. You need to rely on that ultrasound to have them really look at it. So every year, you know, when you're doing your physical,
Get an ultrasound done.
Please include an ultrasound. I was only lucky because there was an issue with my heart.
Right, and
That
that's
was
how
the
it was.
only-
That's how it kind of indicated that we need to check your thyroid. So you had it removed. Obviously,
Yes. And-
it has changed your
Right.
Your life.
Actually, I had that removed and 77 lymph nodes.
Wow.
On top of that. So you have quite a bit of lymph nodes in your neck and throat. So when they took out the thyroid, they also took out 77 lymph nodes. Of the 77, 5 were cancerous.
Wow.
Of the lymph
Okay.
nodes. So they did a good sweep. But I think it all boils down the importance, of please, get your
checked.
executive checkup, get your checkup every year, and include that ultrasound. I can't stress how important that is.
So
Yeah.
I know we're going to have to wrap it up just a little bit, but so how has this affected, getting your thyroid removed? Right? Is it you got
Yes.
it removed? How has that affected not just you musically, but even in your regular life? You know, how has things changed? Obviously,
Right.
you're drinking a lot more, which
Water,
you always have
yeah.
been.
Yeah, through my radiation treatment, it has caused damage. Like most cancers, you know, anybody who's surviving it, there are going to be, you know, some damages that are done from the cancer, especially from the treatment, the radiation, you know, the chemotherapy. You're scarred in some way, and you have to live with a new way of adjusting to that. Now,
And so the water
issue.
has to keep you hydrated because...
No, actually not. The water I use because the radiation treatment that I received, I lost, it killed off some salivatory glands.
Oh, okay.
So it killed that, and
Okay.
so I don't have as much saliva as most
Producing,
people.
okay.
After this surgery, I was told I had to cover up my neck, you know, for the scarring and to make sure that everything is clean. And so I was pulling out some old scarves and putting it on, and you know, I guess I just never stopped. You know, it's been 4 years now. I think 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Oh, we're going on 5 years, which is the marker of 5 years, but 4 years. And it kind of reminds me, by wearing scarves, only to keep me warm, because, you know, the legislature is freezing
right.
cold. But
Comfort.
it does. It's my security blanket. It's to not only that, but it reminds me of the journey that I took. That if I can go through something like that, I can go through anything that comes in front of me. And a lot of times when cancer patients go through that journey, the after effect, it can be very depressing sometimes and difficult, you know, to try and adjust. And I'm hoping that maybe the Cancer Coalition will move more toward finding a counseling group
Right.
made up of
post-cancer.
those
Yeah.
people who've had cancer, because to have the same mindset and talk with somebody, it's so much more comforting to each other
Right.
than someone who hasn't. Don't get me wrong. I just think that
Right.
all the work that everyone does, like you do, you know, for the Cancer Coalition and bringing awareness to the public is so important. But I think what really Guam needs right now is a support group.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
made up of cancer survivors, you know, people who are going through cancer, and helping you go through that journey, because a lot of it too is your mental capacity
Right.
at that point, your mental state of mind that will help you get through the cancer, to help
Right.
you get to fight it, you know, to not just exist,
Right.
but to live.
Right.
And that's
That's
real
so
important.
So Tello's, Senator Tello Taitagui's slogan is usually "Tell it to Tello," but she's telling it to us today. So I want to thank you very much for telling us your story, and truly you are speaking to the people and telling them how to recognize signs, because early detection really is the key to survival of whatever cancer you can have. And I just want to thank you for your, you know, for sharing your journey, and then for your dedication to helping the community, and even just by sitting here, you're helping us. So Tello is my sister in music, my former colleague in the legislature, and my forever friend. Thank you so much for joining us
too.
here on My Story.
Thank you for
And thank
having
you
me.
very much for joining us here on My Story.